to State of the Nation. We are coming to you live from the PF Secretariat right here in Lusaka, and my guest on the show tonight is the Secretary General of the Patriotic Front Party, who is also Secretary General of the Tonse Alliance, that is the Honorable Raphael Nakacinda, and we'll be looking at governance under the United Party for National Development. You can catch us live on DSTV channel 279, on GoTV channel 27, and Topstar channel 102. I am your host, Kennedy Mambwe. Honorable Nakacinda, welcome to State of the Nation.
Thank you very much, and good evening. Good evening to our viewers. Let me take this opportunity to welcome you to our Secretariat. I hope you find it also habitable compared to your studios, and I look forward to an engaging discussion.
Thank you very much. Now, in the past, few days, let's just say on Sunday 24th of August 2025, that marked basically 4 years since President Hakainde and his administration ascended to power. So this evening we discuss his and his party's leadership, that's Mr. Hakainde's leadership, and the UPND, as we review 4 years of their leadership over the affairs of our nation, and obviously Honorable Nakacinda, being one of the key stakeholders in the political landscape, will be able to assist us to unpack how the 4 years of the UPND looks like. Let me begin, Honorable, by asking you, basically from where you stand, how you think the UPND has fared. How do you rate their performance based on the campaign promises that they gave to the Zambian people?
Thank you very much, and thank you for the question you've asked. First of all, we can only measure the performance of the UPND and Mr. Hakainde against their own promises. I think we have been able to speak out, and the Zambian people have come to a conclusion that I think what we have been expressing is true, and I can feel the impact of it. Mr. Hakainde was dubbed Bali will fix it, meaning this is a person that will come with his team into government and you'll be able to fix what they thought was broken. The conclusion of 4 years of UPND being in government is that instead of fixing, they have actually destroyed. What is even more alarming is that even what is supposed to preserve the little that would have to remain even when there is mismanagement of the affairs of the country. Institutions of government like the judiciary, unfortunately, we're witnessing that they are not being spared. Parliament has not been spared. Institutions like the police and law enforcement agencies have not been spared. When you look at ECZ, which is the Electoral Commission of Zambia, equally have not been spared. So, in a summary, really without getting into details, the UPND has and is a failed project. I think the responsibility we have as the opposition is to begin to prepare in response to the demands that the Zambian people are making, that can you get ready to govern? Can you get ready to be able to rescue us from this regime that has proven in many ways that it is brutal, proven in many ways that it's a regime that is insensitive to the welfare and feelings and hate and pain of the people they govern. And they're saying, can you tell us how different will you be to this government, but also how different will you be for us, Patriotic Front, to some of the issues that we were concerned about before the 2021 elections. And I think we are preparing ourselves to exert more of our energies in that direction in speaking to the Zambian people. One is that, first of all, we'll anchor our quest to get into government again on being truthful, on being honest, rolling our sleeves, not to get into government and start a blame game, but get into government and have the tire hit the road immediately to begin to deliver to the expectations of Zambian people.
Right.
So one, for example, we already have a manifesto which we're polishing up, and we'll definitely get into having to consult some of our members of the general public to do with key sectors, agriculture, mines, make sure that the commerce aspect of things are aligned to be able to deliver to the expectations of Zambian people. So basically what I'm saying in my long introductory response is to drive our conversation towards answering to what the Zambian people are asking, to say, tell us what you want to do.
Right. Now, obviously, you seem to be very confident that you could bounce back in power. There is a general perception that is fed by history that in Zambia it is pretty impossible for a former ruling party to bounce back into power almost immediately after your previous loss. What gives you the confidence that this time around you change the history records of Zambia, that a former ruling party could bounce back immediately preceding its loss?
First of all, obviously history, as everybody said, informs the present and can help you project the future. UNIP governed for 27 years under one party, regime, and obviously because it was a multi-party democracy, Dr. Kaunda was competing against, in those days, a flog and things like that, until the Zambian people rose to the occasion, demanded that we, usher in a multi-party democracy system of governance. When the MMD got into office, there were still residues of the one-party state, governance system in terms of the laws, whether it's a Public Order Act and so on. And people had not really fully appreciated that the rights they were and the freedoms they were fought for in 1990-91, they really had them. It took almost about 10 to about 15 years for it to sink that actually we have the power to remove a government in office. In 2011, actually MMD was performing quite well economically. MMD had quite an impressive, as a political party, pace to be able to sponsor a robust campaign, mechanism and machinery against the Patriotic Front, which basically had decided, if you look at the philosophy of the founding president of Patriotic Front, he never fronted money. He never even had, materials. At some point, he went public and said, "I don't want you to start making, chitenges, and you make fun of it." But because of the robust messaging and mobilization of the grassroots, MMD was beaten hands down in 2011. PF, with all the infrastructure programs that we undertook and the good policies that we're implementing that clearly were meant towards empowering ordinary Zambians and Zambians in general, because of the realization of the Zambian people that you can actually remove a government, we were only privileged to be in government for 10 years, even with having performed quite well economically and also tangible development that we brought, which we can name, whether it is roads, whether it's hospitals, clinics, whether it is basically decisions that were progressive towards having Zambia control the mining sector, for example. We had about 2 mines, major mines, that had actually come in the hands of Zambians. 10 years. UPND get into office. Unfortunately, Mr. Hakainde Hichilema is not living, is not president, in the like it was in the UNIP era, where there was no internet, there was no social media, there was no TikTok. That's how come he's not having sleepless nights, because the information is flying at a supersonic speed, even to people in peri-urban areas. So to that effect, the levels of knowledge sharing and awareness among Zambians is better than it was under UNIP, better than it was under MMD, possibly has even improved from the time that Patriotic Front left office. So to that effect, you are dealing with an enlightened citizen. The formula and the strategy of UPND is basically to anchor on misinformation. They are anchoring, they are staying in power through deceit and what they're calling Mingarato, basically to try and defranchise, political parties, in this case targeting the main opposition political party. So we are very confident that with this enlightened citizenry, it's not possible for the UPND to spin propaganda against the reality of what people are going through. Poverty in a nation, unless you tackle it, you can't explain somebody out of hunger to go and vote for you.
Right.
If they are hungry, they are hungry. That's a fact. You can only be able to convince and reason with them if you give them food. And the UPND are not able to do that because they have failed in the past 4 years. There's no way they can be able to achieve anything different in the next few months.
So UPND was in opposition for over 20 years. Mm-hmm. And there was a lot of expectation from the Zambian people that perhaps the Bali will fix it mantra is going to improve the standards of living for an ordinary Zambian people. Do you reckon that 4 years is sufficient for people to judge their performance and make a decision that they failed, let's kick them out? Is that really sufficient? When you compare, yes, you stayed in power for 10 years. They are only in power for 4 years. So maybe, isn't it judging them too early and too soon?
Now, the solutions that he was giving to some of the challenges he felt needed to be fixed were actually promises made that within hours you'll be able to deal with them. He said that, for example, he would deal with the issue of the exchange rate. If he's on in at 10 o'clock, by 14 hours, the dollar will have, the kwacha will have ended or gained its value. He made promises. At least Mr. Sata was saying, give us at least 90 days. You will be able to see some changes. But for him, it was basically hours, days. He was, he's on record of saying, when it comes to investment, he had already prepared, while he's in opposition, through his connections. People were willing to invest in billions of dollars in the Republic of Zambia. He came into office, he has failed to even catch, seal a deal with IMF. Of just 1.3 billion, 1.3 to 1.4 billion dollars. So if we measure him against his own promises, actually you are being too generous to even say, can we, can we be gracious to say 4 years is too much, is too short a time. Actually, for 4 years, based on what he was promising himself, is too much a time for us to even, we should have already been questioning and judging him within just months of him being in office. Right now, I think the performance of the UPND, you can't even have hope that there's something they are doing which may change even after 2026. What they are doing from day one up to today is always detrimental to the welfare of the Zambian people, but also to institutions of governance. There is no way you can give UPND a benefit of doubt when the police have been weaponized to an extent that they will never arrest the wrongdoers that are associated with UPND or are members of UPND. You can never give UPND a benefit of doubt if only those in the opposition are being arrested. And they're being arrested for what? For speaking out against the ills of this, the UPND government. You are seated with somebody who has over 8 cases before the magistrate court and 1 in the High Court. All of them based on us or me challenging, UPND and the officials in UPND, including the president, on the wrongs that he has been doing. They will not attend to the issue raised, but they will find a way to get you arrested so that you can shut up. So you can't give such a government the benefit of that things will change. They go to parliament, enact laws like the cyber crime law, which is also being used purely against ordinary citizens and the opposition.
Well, they'll blame you for having introduced that law in the first place as PF, so you can't blame that law on the UPND. Yes, they promised to repunge it, but you introduced it.
Well, we introduced it, but he promised that he was going to repeal the law. But instead, he has even made it worse.
So you have no right to cry over that?
We have a right to cry over it because the intention we had in introducing the law is not on the basis of how it is being implemented or actualized by the UPND, and also the fact that they have gone further to tweak it to be able to silence dissent or indeed the voice of the opposition and other stakeholders in society. People now in Zambia can speak. People now in Zambia are afraid even to go on social media to be able to undertake social activities because of that particular law. So I think it will be erroneous for Patriotic Front to be bashed for the use of UPND as a means of justifying their wrongs. UPND must face their wrongs as they are. It should not be on the basis to say you did this, therefore they are supposed to even do much more. Then our reasoning around improving or developing a country will never, will not be able to achieve what the Zambian people aspire, to be achieved by those who offer themselves for government.
So given that we are reviewing the performance of the UPND in the last 4 years, can we stretch the thought around the rule of law? You've talked about the performance of the police, you've talked about ECZ and so on and so forth, sparing. I'd like for you to perhaps drill down a little bit more on what you think are the sticky issues around the failure of the UPND with regards to the rule of law. Where do you think they are failing as you are purporting? Because as they say, he who alleges must prove. I think it will be important before the Zambian people for you to give a little bit more highlights of why you think the UPND has performed poorly with regards to the implementation and enforcement of the rule of law.
Okay, let me start by the fact that look at just the freedoms, like the freedom of expression, the freedom of assembly, and we take political parties as an example. For the first time in the history of this country, we've had the opposition denied, an opportunity to assemble and speak to the people through rallies from 2021 up to date. The only political party that has had sparingly an opportunity to hold rallies has been the Citizens First. And I can count with my fingers. I think it was in Kitwe, Samfya, and somewhere here in Lusaka, maybe 3 or 4. In 4 years. For Patriotic Front, we have attempted several times. That has never, we have never had the opportunity. The police has always brutally dispersed attempts by Patriotic Front to hold rallies.
Because
that is an abuse of the law, because the Public Order Act only requires that those who seek to assemble, they should notify the police. But under this regime, they basically are expecting us to seek permit or permission for us to have rallies. And even if we went and sought for permission, they have never allowed us to have rallies. That's number one. 2, we had a by-election declared or by-elections declared in Kwacha and Kabushi, where we had the PF candidates in the name of Bowman Lusambo and Joseph Malanji. The ECZ, which is basically charged with the responsibility to they are like the referee, as it were, in an election, to preside over the election and be able to manage the elections. They clothe themselves with powers they don't have to declare two candidates to be ineligible on the basis that they caused an election. When the Constitution provides that the ECZ, they are only recipients of those who wish to, file nominations and have been adopted by their political party, or they're going there as independents. When they have received the nominations and somebody has filed in the correct documents in terms of their qualifications, their Zambians and so on, that's the business they're expected to conduct as ECZ. If there's anybody out there that is aggrieved or thinks that one of the people who have filed nominations and do not qualify, the Constitution provides that there's 14 days after nomination which you can challenge the nominations. But the ECZ decided that that process which is provided in the Constitution will not respect it. They will undertake it in a preemptive manner themselves. That is already a failure, adhering to the rule of law. And why the failure? Is because the UPND decided to appoint UPND cadres as commissioners at ECZ, including the chair of ECZ. So those people have already a vested interest because they are partisan in the way they conduct the business of ECZ. And that alone is enough reason for which the Zambian people must see that this government is a danger that needs to be removed.
You are very, fixated on participating and hopefully to win this particular election. But you are raising the concerns with the umpire at ECZ. How are you hoping to get a fair adjudication of the process of, and then arrive at the electoral integrity that is envisaged when, as you are pointing out, the people who are managing the full process end to end have got vested interest and purported to be cadres of the ruling party?
The only place we draw inspiration for us to continue remaining optimistic is our founding fathers and mothers. They faced a colonial regime that was equally brutal, against all odds with a system that did not even recognize them to be human beings. They fought until independence came. The consequence was that some were jailed, some were killed, but at the end of the day, you and me are seated here saying we are an independent people in the Republic of Zambia. We are facing this brutal regime led by a dictator, full-blown dictator, on the basis of the fact that every evil is definitely going to be defeated by good if you are consistent. So we will be consistent in challenging injustice, consistent in challenging against all odds, whatever system that and mechanism the UPND have put in place to stifle, to stop, and basically to attempt to go to the election of 2026 unopposed, because that is basically the aim of Misaka Ndechilema and the UPND. And I am saying to the Zambian people, it's not only us, the responsibility of us politicians, it's the responsibility of every citizen to be able to correct the wrong and the rot that has been brought by the UPND. When it comes to the rule of law, like you had asked, it's not only the Kabushi by-elections. In the recent past, you had a member of parliament from Fue speaking on behalf of an oppressed, not only oppressed, abducted member of parliament whose life was under threat. Instead of responding to what she was raising, she ended up being arrested under a so-called cyber crime, jailed, so that somebody can be able to go and manipulate their way through these compromises to grab that seat. And if you understand the whole matrix, that seat was to be grabbed so that numbers can increase for them to change the law. Because as far as Misaka Ndechilema, for him to stay, he needs to manipulate and in parliament enact laws that will perpetuate his stay in power. The Bill 7 was meant for him to deal with issues of tenure of office. He will deal with issues of running mate. He will deal with his hiding into delimitations. But when you look at the details, the areas where the delimitation would take place is basically where he believes it is a stronghold. The consequences they were targeting to delimited are those that are more in the regional areas where he seems to be, popular, so that he can increase numbers. For him, that if he won in 2026, then you have a free way to be able to come up with any law to perpetuate his stay, maybe to even become a life president. So people must see the UPND's moves not only from face value, from a point of face value, but to interrogate and see the full picture of the plan and strategy they have to perpetuate their stay. So we can get into the nitty-gritties of what Zambians are suffering, what the opposition are suffering, against the abuse of the police, against the polarization and the abuse of institutions of government, and their disregard to the rule of law. Under the case I referred to for, Kabushi and the Kwacha, do you know and you remember that even the court had made, a ruling, a judgment to stop that elections? The president himself was the first one to defy the court judgment. A government and the president who believes in the rule of law, immediately there is a decision by the court, they cease to, they obey the court order. We have our own case as Patriotic Front. When our good brother Mao Sampa did what he did, we went to court to stop what clearly the UPND decided to take advantage of and impose, their own, surrogates as leaders of Patriotic Front. We went to court. That matter, whether you like it or not, is a matter that must be considered to be a matter in public interest. This is 2 years down the line from 2023 up to today. The court has not been able to pronounce itself on those matters.
You reckon the courts are under the control of the executive?
We have appealed to the judiciary. We have said to the judiciary respectfully, you are the conscience of our society. And where there is a dispute, we expect that the judiciary, who live in the same environment like ourselves, would be able to speedily mete out justice.
Right.
We have not gone before the court to seek for favors. We have gone before the court to say, can the truth prevail? May justice be meted out. Delayed justice is basically, denied justice. That's in paraphrasing. That's what others have said.
Right.
So to that effect, we have said the cases for Patriotic Front are an indictment against the judiciary. How is it that we have matters which have been speedily done, which, for example, the removal of judges in the Concord, within 2-3 days of somebody complaining, a judge is suspended. The following day, the Judicial Complaints Authority has met and removed the judge. The fourth day, it has happened. Even when the judges go to court, they went to court. It took 3 weeks to 1 month. The matter is disposed of. But a matter that has to do with a constitution entity called Patriotic Front, who has members of parliament who are supposed to speak on behalf of the people of Zambia in the National Assembly. Its issues are not dealt with for 2 years. Every time there are technicalities that are being used as an excuse. We can only, in this case, speculate what is going on. What is so special about the cases of, PF that they cannot be resolved?
Right.
We end up even having a situation where the parties that are the dispute reconcile and agree to say, I think, yes, what happened there was wrong. We even have a consent judgment. We even go to court and argue that I think there was an error. Our friend has woken up to the fact that what was done was wrong. So the court, under a judicial system which is adversarial in nature, our judicial system in Zambia is adversarial. It is parties that move the court. So if those two parties or more who have moved the court over a particular dispute agree, the court has no other power but to execute the consent or indeed to agree and say, proceed, since you have settled this matter outside court, or you have agreed before me that there's no further dispute, the court can't invite itself to start saying, you still have a dispute. No. The parties that move the court have said, we have no dispute anymore. Right. This matter should have been resolved and should be resolved immediately.
Right.
If at all of us, including those in the judiciary, including those at parliament, including the executive, and those of us who are also playing a role from the opposition, we should be able to agree that for democracy to thrive in the Republic of Zambia, the opposition voice needs to be enhanced, needs to be enabled to still exist. And Patriotic Front represents the main opposition political party in the Republic of Zambia, going by the number of members of parliament, mayors and council chairpersons, councillors across the country, and so on. It is a fact that Patriotic Front is the main opposition. The reason it is a target for UPND is because they know if they allow Patriotic Front to thrive, the voice of the opposition will be stronger and they will be held accountable. There are too many things that Hakainde Hichilema is going scot-free without being properly challenged because Parliament has been compromised. The leader of opposition is a stooge of the UPND. The leader of opposition that was appointed at the time, on Brand Mundubire, was removed unceremoniously because of the so-called Mingarat of UPND. When we challenged the Madam Speaker, Nelly Muti, to say the decision you have made, and we went to court, she said, no, the matter in court does, she did not respect the fact that the matter of Honorable Mundubire and the colleagues was in court. Later on, when Chavinga was appointed and we sued in court, she changed and said, no, as far as we are concerned as Parliament, we just received correspondence from the political party. And now the political party has communicated that Chavinga is the leader of opposition, and according to the History of Society, the president is Mao. There it goes. The court comes and authenticates that Mao is president, and he appoints me as Secretary General. And then I write to the same speaker to say, okay, this same president you recognize, Mao Sampa, has now appointed me as Secretary General, and I've fired Chavinga. We have now appointed Mao Sampa as leader of opposition. He says, no, matters are in court. You understand? That is a sign that they do not even respect their own standard of the rule of law. Right. They are playing politics everywhere in these sacred institutions that are supposed to be protected.
Earlier you talked about Bill 7. It's probably not the only law, contentious bill that the Zambian people opposed. Recently we had the Bill 13. Now, with regards to Bill 7, because you said there was some hidden agenda behind it, it was deferred, other than it being ruled unconstitutional by the Concord. But most recently, we've seen some chiefs who have come in the public domain saying they are demanding that that bill should be reintroduced when Parliament rises again. Do you see that perhaps we could see the resurgence of Bill 7, or do you think that given the fact that we have like 8 months before Parliament is dissolved, maybe there couldn't be sufficient time for consultation, to introduce another bill that will embody the meaning of Bill 7?
Reckless as Hakainde Hichilema is, I don't doubt the fact that you may attempt to reintroduce Bill 7. But from where I'm seated, if he attempts and dares the Zambian people with that bill, it may just be a good tool for us, the opposition, to sink him even further. I dare him to reintroduce, because the Zambian people have spoken loudly. He may be listening to 1 or 2 chiefs that he has sponsored to speak about it because of the hidden agenda I talked about. But the Zambian people are resolved against Bill 7. He attempts to bring it, it will be his quickest way to leave office.
Right.
Bill 13, people have talked about it. But there is also a bill that is attempting to introduce, others according to Bill 14 or something, to which they want teachers to start renewing their licenses as teachers every 5 years. Over and above failing to pay civil servants their salaries as it is today. Okay? He wants to even increase their burden in terms of the little salary, which is also delayed, sometimes not paid, that they should be paying every 5 years fees for them to renew licenses for them to teach. He is introducing more ways of trying to generate revenue against the poor civil servants, while it's giving mining entities and businesses, some of which are his friends, tax holidays. In Zambia, when are we going to learn that we should scrutinize those that we choose for president so that we don't end up like we have now, a business person whose mindset is basically accumulative. They want to accumulate more and more for themselves at the expense of the majority. So as far as I'm concerned, what the UPND are doing is all tailored towards a narrow partisan, if not personal interest. You understand what I'm saying? Today it's shameful that we are talking of road shedding, for example, because Patriotic Front, from the 1972 investment of UNIP in terms of infrastructure and energy or electricity generation, it is under PF that we're able to increase from 1.5 to 1.7 million megawatts that we were producing at the time, to increase it to about 3.6, between 3.2 to 3.6, which is basically twice the capacity. And when you look at the population and the demand by ordinary Zambians, we are not supposed to have road shedding in the Republic of Zambia. And that was the projection, hence even the magnitude of investment that was made there. This gentleman comes and finds that as Christmas to use to try and appease, and he's exporting electricity at the expense of all of us. They are using the Caribbean as an excuse. But I can tell you that if we just revise the contracts that where we're supplying, whether it is Africa, Namibia, and so on, electricity, these hours that we're enduring without electricity will be, history. But they would rather prioritize foreigners. And sometimes mambo musu minisheko. I think we also need to interrogate and investigate Abaturela and Abarefogo president. Do you know that sometimes the way a person grew up can influence their policy position when they're in government? I remember my grandmother used to get upset. My grandmother used to get upset when she had special plates in her home. They were in a cupboard like this. We used to call them mama cupboard. So when the visitors come, naturally, the culture at the time is that they'll get special plates and give visitors. Plastic. I don't know, she was not educated, but she would get upset and say, no, special. Ni ababene, pantu abanga bakula monati ba muisa, eba abapo abachindamo kuchira abaikara pano pangana. So muntu ngakula le tontonganya ati special plates, special table, apakula pa special paveni. Efiroko ati ngasaba president, aremona musungu ngaisa ewa ba special. Uyunga ofuma kunsewa ba special. Abantu apanganda kuri yampama plastic.
What are you insinuating?
What I'm insinuating is that this government maybe imikulire yabakateka tayari bwino sana. Echo barechindikira bakunse kuchira abantu babo. And we're trying to say, can you remove that mentality? Let a special place be used by Zambians first before our noble Makufialo. That's how it should work.
Well, let's move on to, perhaps let's come to your doorsteps. With the unfortunate, untimely passing of the former president, Dr. Edgar Chagwa Lungu, I think now it's nearly 3 months or thereabout. You have an active case, particularly between the family and government, but as a party you have stood by the family in this process, which somewhat has stalled your pace of reorganization, given the fact that you cannot predict how long this matter is going to last in court in a foreign jurisdiction. Do you think you still have sufficient time to remobilize yourselves and make sure that you are strong enough to participate against a party that has got all the resources at their disposal and the power of incumbency?
Well, first of all, I'll answer it 2 ways. It will be erroneous for anyone to attempt to separate the Lungu family from us. President Lungu was, up to his death, party president of Patriotic Front. And what he sacrificed and died for is directly connected to the party and the people of Zambia. President Lungu, if it was about him and his family, there were 3-4 occasions that Misaka Ndechirema attempted through his friends to come and negotiate with President Lungu to retire from active politics. Former President Koloma came, and I was privileged personally to be part of the negotiations. And President Lungu was very clear. I was away from politics, and my young brother knows, Akainde Ichirema, that I was even preparing to start activities, philanthropic activities through his foundation, reaching out to the vulnerable and so on. But all of a sudden, the judiciary was being tampered with. Parliament clearly tampered with. ECZ tampered with the Kabushi issues I talked about. And it was escalating to other areas, the police and so on. Still, he does a Mingarato to take away PF from the legitimate leadership. Clearly, he saw that the democratic space in this republic is not only shrinking, it's being terminated. And as a patriot, he could not sit back at home without him coming to contribute to restore what he left, which Misaka Ndechirema promised was going to improve. So if he can just do the basic things, let the rule of law prevail in the Republic of Zambia. Let him return the party to its rightful owners. And let him, because Misaka Ndechirema clearly, publicly has continued to even recognize surrogates like Chavinga. You remember when he was in Kasama in 2023, where he was telling Chavinga at the tarmac after arriving in Kasama, saying, no, continue being strong. In other words, your illegal position that you've been given, that's a head of state, meaning he has no regard whatsoever to the rule of law. Whether it was President Koloma, Kikwete, later on, General Obasanjo, who came to offer courtesies towards the former president. He insisted, I can only consider what you ask me to do if things are corrected in the Republic of Zambia. He went up to his death advocating for that. So as a party, we stand and are part of what the family is fighting for, because it's not just about him being stopped to go to the hospital. That's just one leg of it. It's not just about the family enduring all manner of brutality and harassment at the hand of this government. That's just one leg. The other leg is what I've just elaborated. So we are very much part to the grievances the family have. But as much as we are part to the grievances, the family is also part to the fact that they understand the party needs not to die just because our president has died. The family is aware that there is a calendar that has been released. There are some activities that the party needs to undertake. And as Secretary General, I have engaged the family and will continue to engage the family. We want that the matter of the burial of our president is resolved as quickly as possible and is put to rest. But if it takes beyond a certain limit that we have projected, that beyond that the party needs to make decisions, the family is objective enough, the family is aware of the responsibility the party has on behalf of the Zambian people to make certain decisions. So nobody should think that there is a separation between ourselves and the family. Decisions will be made in consultation with the family, and we'll be able to guide the family, and comfortably so, we'll be able to make steps towards making sure that even the calendar that the ECs have made, though we're interrogating it, we are able to be ready at the time we are called upon to represent the Zambian people in the polls.
Premised on what you have said, I'm sure the Zambian people watching us, right now would be curious to know, because only about 2 days ago you had a press conference where you banned certain activities like endorsements and you hinted at possibility of going to a convention. And that is really where I'm sure the Zambian people would like you to speak to, because who is going to hold this convention when PF is in in the hands of a person you are describing as a surrogate, which outfit are you going to use to hold this convention? And just help us unpack this. You know, the timelines that you have set, your engagement with the family. You're going potentially to a convention to elect new leadership, yet the party has been hijacked based on your own submission here. How do you see this playing out?
First of all, I don't know if you are paying attention to what I was submitting. Right now where we are, matters to do with the Patriotic Front are resolved. Chavinga is not president of PF. At law, or in terms of the court, he's president of PF in the mind of HH. That's the only thing he's standing on. And those who have refused to be professional at the Register of Society. The one that held some activity that he called a conference was Mao Sampa. He took himself and his friends as office bearers, which you all know that it was the whole process undertaken within 24 hours to clear fingerprints and others. And the deputy IG that time, Nyambango, who was fired later, was even proudly pronouncing that they cleared the fingerprints. Let's not forget to celebrate a patriotic and law-abiding woman in Mrs. Tandiwe Mende, who refused to change office bearers and said what that activity that was undertaken falls short of what is called a conference of PF, because as custodians of the constitution of PF, I cannot even attempt to change office bearers. She was hounded out of the office brutally for being professional. Those facts should never be forgotten. We don't even know what is happening to her for being professional under this brutal regime. So, as far as we are concerned, as Patriotic Front, we will not participate in aiding UPND to justify their fraudulent activities. Hence, our adamance to fight for PF to be retained, because it was taken in a criminal manner. One of the participants who was key in that Mao Sampa has realized, taking counsel from the people he has met, as he confessed, to say, I've gone to different parts of the country and all of them are saying what you did was wrong, go back to your friends. And he has come. For us, that's not a sign of weakness. That's a sign of strength, that somebody can realize that what they did was wrong, okay, and has come to the fore. And we have said these matters are sorted out. There's no way we can have the judiciary hold PF to ransom, even when we have reconciled. It doesn't make sense anywhere. So when we say the party is in the hands of the surrogate, how? Because we have reconciled. Okay, if it is the word surrogate, the captain and the mighty surrogate called Mao Sampa has realized and has come back. There's no other surrogate.
Fine. Talking about the issue of you telling your members to stop any form of campaign and endorsement, can we unpack that? Does it speak to the fact that maybe there could be some cracks within your camp? You are divided and you are scared that if people start endorsing Honorable Rubinda there, Honorable Munduwire there, and those are some of the names we have heard, you think the party will disintegrate even further? What is the motivation behind you stopping people from endorsing? Because they must take interest on who should lead them.
You're inviting yourself into wanting to personalize a press briefing that was guiding the institution. Maybe, I wish I could speak in Nyanja, but
Are you insinuating I'm not understanding your English?
Palamule piko fiakulia. Chali shuko kutile fiakulia wonse panganda. Mamona kwali benshita kwa bati fiaipikwa bateula after bateula bachashani bapakula babika na patebero bana nomba bana exchange sehani muli. Aparanga mandati nomba seni muli. You can't now measure mikusubale wale suna mamara suno tunono mamefika lamba filafina. That's a different ball game. But to come and allow people, that's out of order. Because so here we know that there's going to be a selection of a president. We are just saying that the stage at which mwakula suna mikusubane whether ukasuna chikana mbanangula kanono taturafika po hiyo lekeni tuteule tupakule tubike patebo lero mambo kusuna mwasuna bwangu walita buda taturatia kula mambo kusuna mwasuna bwangu message nale pela abo basunire nga mumona kwati niwene mundubire basunire nisina basuna bwangu ngani barubinda basunire nabasuna bwangu ngani bamauzi basunire nabasuna bwangu nabo balishire monekanga nabasuna bwangu so bweshenu bunga kyakule bwino so tubike patebo mkambe kusashani. That's a message. I hope you understand the metaphor. We are saying it's premature to start endorsement. It's not that we are stopping people to have preferences. But if you have a preferred candidate for now, talk about that candidate at home. Don't bring it here because premature things always lead to death. You understand? That's what Varanda Kutira, I don't want to get into other areas, maybe I could be misunderstood. Anything done prematurely doesn't last.
Right. Let me also ask you, I mean, since you're talking about the right time coming, we had the right time when about 10 candidates paid their 200,000 kwacha. When you are going to open a new chapter for convention and, money to be paid for those wishing to stand, what are you going to do? Are those 10 already in casting stone? You're just going to add to the new entrants on the list? How are you, as Secretary General, hoping to navigate this? Because it's in the public domain.
First, let me correct you. When you say there was a right time before, okay? Before, there was only an indication from the legitimate leader that he had gone on sabbatical leave and he wanted to pave way for a new leader to emerge. I get the point. And the party began to prepare. And along the way, of course, people began to say, offering themselves and so on, that they could be considered for leadership. And the party said, we are going to have, people, or those who want to express interest, so that you are scrutinized. You are required to pay 200 as an expression of what? Interest that you are available for presidency. While such process was going on, the members of the Patriotic Front, the Zambian people began to see the bad signs of this new government. And the person they could easily relate to and compare to that, in comparison to their performance was ECL. So they began to call on ECL, I think Abwerelep. In a democracy, the voice of the people, you have heard those sayings. All of a sudden, even us as a party, we began to hear that there is a call to a person who's not even among the list of those who expressed interest. And we had our own internal process of having conversations. Should we ignore what the Zambian people are saying? We all came to a conclusion, no. And all those who expressed interest were magnanimous enough in the interest of democracy to say, no, I think the former president has not finished his business. After all, he still has another bite at the cherry if considered to be a candidate at a time. So they paved way for him to come back. So yes, there was a decision to open it up, but along the way a decision was made that the one who is legitimate in office, who the Zambian people are calling for, come back to situ. But right now there is a clear vacancy. And that vacancy will have to be filled. It's inevitable to have a conference. The only thing we are managing right now is a process.
And that's my question.
Yeah, so that process in itself must be seamless, but so that what it achieves at the end of the day is a united, well-organized, patriotic front.
What the Zambian people know and the broader membership of your party is that there was never a refund of those 200,000 kwachas. So this is what I'm saying. Are those already on your list of potential candidates because you never refunded them? Are you going to just
if you had allowed me to land,
right,
I was going to definitely deal with that aspect because it's a smaller matter in the equation. I needed to just give you a background. People paid non-refundable of 200. When we have reopened at this particular point, those who have paid and are still interested to proceed, because as Secretary General where I'm seated, there are some who have come to my office and said I had paid that time. But after this period of time I've reflected, I don't think I will still participate. And therefore, for me, it's a donation to the party. And I can tell you out of the 9, at least I can confirm 4 of them that have come to the office and told me this is the position. They may be debated out there because they paid, but they have approached the Secretary General and set their position. There are those who paid and are saying, well, it looks like the opportunity has opened again, I'm still available. But the decision of the Central Committee that will sit on the 20th, though there are indications from even what you saw Honorable Mo Sampa pronounce and others have pronounced, that it can't be exclusive, a preserve of those who paid. And therefore, there is a high demand within the party and out there that can we broaden the scope of selecting a leader. And that is a matter that will be genuinely and openly presented to Central Committee. And I can tell you that the decisions of Central Committee will definitely prevail and will be pronounced as we move forward.
You've been preaching unity among opposition players, and you have been the anchor party of Tonse Alliance, but Tonse Alliance right now is giving vibes of division, especially as it relates to how you're going to navigate the choice of the leader. There was unanimous consensus between PF and other parties that came into the Tonse Alliance to make sure that the late 60th Republican president was both chairperson of Tonse and presidential candidate for 2026. We have now seen that based on the unfortunate demise of ECL, certain people within Tonse Alliance are saying you cannot be suggesting that you will go and choose a leader and we will just, accept. That agreement was exclusive to ECL, not to any other leader. I think you owe it to the Zambian people again to clarify that matter.
One of the difficulties that we, as PF, we needed to navigate, and it was a pain also to President Edgar Chakalungu, is that there has always been an attempt, and there was an attempt, to separate President Lungu from PF. There were people who came to PF purely just to relate to President Lungu, and they felt that they could use him in a manipulative manner to gain some kind of political marriage. Some of them wanted to, even in their own calculation, having by default endorsed them by association. Okay? And therefore, they were always fighting the idea of having PF as a party, move together with President Lungu in any political working relationship. We had difficulties about that in UCA, to a point where, as a party, would be insulted sometimes by colleagues, suggesting that, PF is incorrigible. These are, actually, they were rejected in 2021, as though President Lungu was not part of PF at the time that we voted out. And we kept on trying to reason with friends. President Lungu is PF, and he is the leader of PF. You deal with him, you are dealing with us. There is no way that President Lungu, having been deployed by the party to come and join UCA, you are receiving President Lungu, but you don't want to receive the party. Tonse, when we started, the conversations were a little different, because remember, Patriotic Front, after our experience with UCA, we did come up with a committee that went to interrogate this idea of alliances, led by Dr. Kanisha's band. And it was from there that we came up with the rules of engagement. And the rules of engagement were presented to those who are interested to be part of Tonse. And the rules of engagement from Patriotic Front were wholly accepted. Clearly, because President Lungu was part of the negotiating table, and he was the one spearheading the fact that this is what we, as a minimum, as Patriotic Front to accept if we are going to work with anybody. Now, along the way, after agreeing, signing, and whatever, others have begun to speak out there that they don't accept the rules of engagement. It is, how do I put it? It is not morally right to do that. If you have a change of heart or view to things, what you do is that you go back to the table with colleagues and persuade them. That's how come in a democracy there is no subject that should ever be sacred to discuss. Don't go on an auntie and start insulting your friends to things which you yourselves committed yourself. So if you accepted the 14 rules of engagement, at what point did you change your mind and even communicate to PF that we don't agree? You have never done that. Then you want to go on an auntie and start talking like that. That's not correct. But the motivation for us in everything around Tonse, around other alliances and friends in the opposition, is that we're motivated to find ways and mechanisms through which the unity of the opposition should not be tampered with over petty technical issues which can be resolved. We would want that all of us mature, rise above petty issues, and be able to discuss. So whether it is CF, whether it is other political parties, whether it is those who have issued statement out there, and so on, we are saying, as Patriotic Front, our doors for constructive conversation are open, provided when you walk through that door, you are genuinely wanting to find a solution for the Zambian people. We are not going to come to the table ourselves with ulterior motive to manipulate another, but we are also not going to allow anybody to try and manipulate us to advance their personal interests, and mainly which is narrow, because of ambition, of becoming president, and so on. Being president of the Republic of Zambia is not an achievement, colleagues. It's not an achievement. It's the beginning of a matter, and the Bible says the end of the matter is greater and better than the beginning thereof. So being president is not the end in itself. It's not an achievement. So even the attitude of, do or die, I have to become president, that is the disease we are trying to cure. We are all comrades, we are all colleagues, we are all politicians. In this case, the bigger problem we have is the damage the UPND are causing to the country that we need to cure. And to that effect, a leader who emerges from the collective must be one who, outside, after being scrutinized and the minimum standard of criteria has been met, you are made president and supported by everybody. Any president or person who imposes himself just like Nakacinda did will end up like Nakacinda. But a servant of the people will always be looking to the people. Can we push a collective agenda? Right. That even when you become president, you know that you are privileged because colleagues, invested and deposited confidence in you to lead them in this arrangement.
As we wrap up our discussion, I can't believe it's already an hour almost, but as we begin to wrap up our discussion, there is a matter of public interest and of concern that has arisen with regards to the issuance of fake national registration cards in the northern circuit of our country. One chief complained that at his palace, he has received not less than 200 fake NRCs that people, his subjects, have gone to surrender. It is raising a lot of apprehension in the minds of the people, because those are NRCs that are being given through what is called the mobile NRC issuance exercise, which is predominantly linked to the electoral roadmap that you said you were going to interrogate at another point. Now, given the sacredness of an ID, can we really afford to compromise security features on an ID and give it? I would like, as a stakeholder, to speak to this matter, grave matter of public interest that has arisen. What should be done to correct this?
First of all, Home Affairs must be brought to order. I must answer. Whoever issued those NRCs must be arrested. and the chain, including whoever authorized that kind of arrangement, must be arrested. Jack Mwimbu, the Home Affairs Minister, must answer to those criminal acts that are being undertaken. How can you give NRCs? We have a former DC in Petauke who is in jail today, alleged.
In detention?
In jail. She was sentenced. She's in jail today for basically trumped up charges that she was issuing NRCs to underage what? Children. Though the evidence was basically, because I followed that matter, it was based on hearsay. But now we have evidence of fake NRCs being issued to citizens. First of all, that is basically declaring them non-citizens because they are fraudulently calling themselves citizens of the Republic of Zambia by virtue of having fake NRCs, because they can't transact anything with those fake NRCs. So the one who issued has committed an offense. Those who instructed the person to issue that, they also committed an offense. Even the Minister of Home Affairs, who has wasted the public taxpayers' money by giving, officers on the ground, materials that were not complete, also committed an offense. So everybody in the chain must be made to account. But what is even more concerning is that how can you have such a criminal mind that you would go and issue fake NRCs in these regions just because you believe it's not your stronghold, and therefore you want to defranchise people to a point of basically making them stateless? It's abominable. It's abominable. Politics should not be stretched to those levels. Let that be corrected and let people be made to account for those fraudulent things that are doing in the Northern Circuit.
Your last words around the performance of the UPND in the last 4 years and the last remaining months. Do you think they still have sufficient time to redeem themselves and deliver as per their promises?
There's only one thing that the UPND can do at this particular stage, is to prepare to pack. The good thing about the Zambians is that they believe strongly in the power of the vote. In other jurisdictions where people are not peaceful as we are peaceful in Zambia, this situation we're in would have actually called for untold, situations. I am just praying and grateful that the Zambian people hold their peace, at least up to a point of us voting, so that these people through the vote can go home. Otherwise, the situation is painful. The ground is anguishing, tormented, garnishing their teeth because of having sometimes one meal in 2 days.
Honorable Raphael Nakacinda, my guest on State of the Nation tonight, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much, and thanks for hosting me.
We're grateful that we could have, we could have had this interview right in your, premises. We are grateful. And to the Zambian people, thank you so much for choosing to keep us company. Until next time, the Lord keep you and bless you. On behalf of my field camera, Joe, Mukasa, and indeed on behalf of my producer, Rachel Chipwende, bye-bye for now.